Today on CityCastDenver, we're looking back at the biggest stories of the week, from the mayor's latest moves to support businesses downtown to some trouble facing the Denver Pride Parade this year, plus our wins and fails of the week. Today is Friday, April 18th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome to CityCastDenver, the show about the city getting ready to celebrate 420 this Sunday. And for the first time ever, the festival in Civic Center is going to cost $25, but staying the heck away is free, as usual.
This was my concern when they started doing more events in Civic Center Park, that eventually it was going to start costing more and more money for stuff that was free. So I'm a little annoyed with that.
It's such an interesting evolution, I think. Like, this started as a protest, right? Like, to legalize weed.
Absolutely. It was at the Capitol.
And now it's this, like, music festival thing. I don't know.
It makes sense because, like, they do 420 on the Rocks and, like, all that. You know, it's music and is a part of the culture of weed for sure. Bone Thugs and Harmony is coming, which I've enjoyed their renaissance so much. They've had sort of a second life through TikTok and Instagram, which has been really amazing because I think they're one of the more underrated groups of the 90s. But
this has gone totally past me.
Well,
this was never a band for me, and I have not been aware of the renaissance that's happening. I'm happy to hear it.
They're great. They're doing great. They're doing better than ever. I'm proud of them.
I know the other guy coming, Corday.
That's
like a new hot hip hop artist.
Someone's smartly booking this. I will say that, because then you got Tommy Chung. So you definitely have like boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. Everybody's involved.
Yeah,
I like it.
Sounds expensive. That's why you got to charge.
I guess so. You get the big acts.
Yeah,
charge some money.
It's the venue that bothers me. It's the public park. But what I expected.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm Paul Caroli. We're coming to you from the beautiful Dude IDK Studios in Five Points. You can find us now on YouTube if you want to see what this looks like. I'm wearing a hat this week. What kind of hat is it? You got to check out the YouTube. Bree Davies is with me as usual.
Hi.
Hey, Bree.
Hi.
Are you celebrating 420 this year? Do you have plans?
I mean, I did in the 90s because I was a teenager and it was cool to do that. I have to say it's not a thing I do now. I feel like it's weird. It's like Colorado. It's like 420 any day, truly. So no, I am not.
Yeah.
Isn't it also Easter?
It's also Easter.
So that's maybe what I'm probably doing.
Yeah, around 4:20 p.m. is like Easter dinner time, I think, for a lot of people.
Seems weird. Well, I do have
Easter
a ham,
nap.
so
Easter nap.
Yeah, true. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not going to participate in like what 420 is about, but I probably won't be there.
Yeah, you'll be doing your own thing.
Yeah,
a private ceremony.
If that's what you want to call it. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not calling it anything. I'm not doing that stuff anymore. Anyway, we have a great guest today. She was the first out member of City Council, which we might talk about later in the show, and now teaches public policy at CU Denver. Welcome back, Robin Kniech.
So happy to be here.
Robin, 420, what's your relationship with this thing?
You know, for 12 years, I was in the city and county building, and it would sometimes, be occurring on a weekday during a committee, and there's nothing like Wiz Khalifa banging in the background when you're talking about ethics reform.
It's a Colorado experience.
The staff
with the smell
would kind
wafting in.
It might be a little levity for a council meeting. That'd be hard to get through.
Boy.
That is the nice part about weed culture. As annoying as it is, it's like very jovial. So, maybe it infuses it in other places we wouldn't expect.
And then, there's the other side of it, which is, did they clean up adequately? You all remember.
Sure.
So I'm thinking if they're charging, then they're professionals rather than stoned individual volunteers.
Like maybe the people that have provided trash cans and the basic infrastructure of a festival, which we will talk about later.
I hope so. Boy, there was one year, it was just like, maybe it's going to happen again. I don't know, but it was such a mess. There was people like stumbling into the street.
Yeah.
I normally stay away.
Safety first.
Yeah. We have a little bit of business to talk about before we get to the show. We're gearing up for our big spring membership drive next week, which will be exciting. We get to talk about how you can support the show. We know that people are always asking, wanting to, know the best way to do so. And we got some new stuff to talk about next week.
And some cool stuff you can get when you become a member, which we will talk about next week.
Yes.
So
new plans, secret plans to be revealed. Also, Bree and I are going to be hosting a cool event next Thursday, and you all are invited, kind of on theme for today's show of business downtown, but we're going to be hosting The Climb, which is the Jake Jabs Center for Entrepreneurship's annual business plan competition. There will be judges, some local business notable figures, and a pitch competition in front of a live audience, potentially including you. You can come. We're going to have a link in the show notes. We'd love to see you there. Thursday evening. Should be
Can
fun.
we play the American Furniture Warehouse theme song after this?
We should.
I was going to ask if you had the white tigers.
I should have brought a stuffed animal. or something.
They give you those now. They have for a long time when you go to American Furniture Warehouse, but it's just the commercials are burned into my brain.
I talked to him once. For a long time, he was the most famous. You'd sometimes say, like, who's the most famous person you ever interviewed, and he was mine for a long time.
That makes sense for Denver,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Was he nice?
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he cared about me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of unions. That's
Is that
one
true?
Of his, yeah, there were some
wow.
ballot measures back in the day. We had a
Interesting.
long history here.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
that's,
he's supporting public education for college and graduate students, and that's a good
cool.
thing.
good turn.
All right, let's get to our top story. This week, it's really two downtown business stories that we're going to try to tie together on a theme. I see some parallels. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But first, Mayor Mike Johnston held a press conference on Monday outside a new location of the Urban Egg Restaurant to announce the new Denver Permitting Office, which he says will help cut wait times for housing and commercial construction permits. Robin, this is your world. Why is this a big deal?
Well, I have to disclose I only played a permit reviewer on Channel 8, but
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time
What are you
on
talking
these
about?
topics.
What do you mean?
Channel 8 is the public access television channel where you can watch City Council and you can
Yes,
watch
it
them
broadcasts
online.
Oh.
Channel 8 online, you can watch City Council. And
Okay.
all of my famous roles were played on Channel 8. So the permitting office, I have a pro tip for folks following Mayor Johnston's approach to policy, which is there's the press conference and the quote, and then there's the go find the document written by the staff. So, the office is really going to be 3 new people, or not even new, but redeployed people, 3 people. And then it is basically some new expectations for, I would call it due process. It's like, hey, if I get stuck, I get to go to an appeal to an executive committee. And then if the executive committee can't fix it, then maybe I have the right to ask for a refund of my permitting fees. So it's a new approach, but it's a reshuffling of people and a redeployment. So it'll be interesting to see whether something that's really been a resource problem is solved by a restructuring problem.
But the problem, though, the resource problem, like I know there's some people who are like permitting is the biggest problem in the city. It needs to be fixed.
We hear
But
that
I think a lot of people,
a lot.
it was a big issue in the mayor's race. But I think a lot of people are out there thinking like, why does the mayor care about permits? Like, why is that a problem?
I mean, this is a really big deal. It's a big deal because when you're holding a property and it's not, generating any revenue, whether that's rents or coffee sales, you are losing money. You have to pay the taxes, you have to pay the upkeep. And so it is a big impact to businesses, and it's been a big concern. But we really had a big flood of permits that came in 2021. Some people might blame me. I was a big champion of something called expanding housing affordability, and it created a big rush of new permits all at once so that everybody could get in before the new rules. And when that happened,
So they didn't have to build the affordable housing?
and didn't have to pay the fees if they were building a commercial structure. Exactly, Bree.
Okay.
So,
I was wondering what the rush was about.
oh yeah, the rush was about avoiding the affordability rules, avoiding paying for affordable housing. And so that created a bigger pipeline of projects at one time than the city had ever seen before.
So it was kind of like, is this, I guess, when you were in office, was this a problem at the time? Was this something that you heard about from constituents? Or is this a 2021 and on problem?
It's time immemorial, Bree.
Yeah, that's my understanding. There's been a glut and
Always
the
been
wait
this way.
times, and that you always hear from developers and business owners that it's so long and it costs them so much money. So let's talk about like how that's the problem. I think we have a sense of the problem. There's a big long wait list. Developers have been upset. Business owners have been upset. It's taking too long. It's costing me money. The mayor says, I'm going to streamline it. I'm going to make it easier. And here's his proposal. And I thought there's one piece of this that I thought was quite interesting. It's got all the headlines this week was the plan is to set a deadline for permitting. Apparently, the mayor wants to set this deadline of 180 days. So if the city fails to approve a permit in that time, they must refund the applicant up to $10,000. So the current average is 260 days. So that's that's a much faster timeline. But you're saying that it's not always under the city's control. So how is this problem supposed to solve, or how is this fix supposed to solve this problem?
We've got the classic apple orange thing going on here, Bree and Paul. So if you read the fine print of the mayor's proposal, it's that it's 180 days in the city's hands. It does not mean you will get your permit within 180 days of the day you file it.
Of the process.
No.
Okay.
And so we don't actually know if it will speed up the entire time, because the applicant will have to do their part faster too to get these things done quicker. Now, I know there's a developer listening right now and they're yelling at their radio in their car and they're like, listen, but it takes me so long because the city asked me too many questions, or it made me redo something I shouldn't have had to redo. That's real. When that happens, it is on the city. And so I think that the process improvements that are needed here aren't necessarily the threat of a big refund. It's how do we make sure we tell them everything in the first review? Don't tell me 3 reviews later that I have to do a sidewalk improvement I didn't plan on in my first review, right? So those are the types of things. For this to succeed, we have to get to those systemic issues, not just make staff afraid that they're going to lose the city money.
That's what I was wondering about, is what the pressure is on the staff with this like very clear marker of date, like 180 days. And like you're saying, sometimes it's out of the city's hands because it is in the hands of the person applying for the permit. Do you feel like the mayor's plan has anything in place to deal with that? Are we adding more staff? I know
they're
have
not
this
adding more
liaison,
staff.
but they have this liaison program now where you actually have a person they're pinpointing.
A project champion.
Someone you can yell at directly all the time.
Yeah.
Is how I took it. Like, that's my guy I yell at. Like, what do you see in the mayor's plan regarding that part? Like, is there something that's going to change with the process?
I'm going to share with you that according to what I read, it's really the large complex projects that are getting a champion. It's not every single one. If I'm doing a restaurant remodel,
that's kind of what
My
I was
understanding was it was everyone.
Well, this is the challenge when the executive order is not online. Both Paul and I have been looking for it. But, the detailed description in the infographic on the city's website is where I'm getting most of my information. And it describes the complex projects getting it. They've had champions for a long time in development services. There's been a division, and so I don't know how new that is. If it's expanding to more projects, then that would be a good thing. And I will just say that some of the things that the mayor's both this mayor and the prior mayor's teams have been doing up until now are going to be the things that will make this successful or not. For example, they did days where they don't take any emails, meetings, calls, and all they do is process applications. They call them kind of boot camp type days. And those types of efforts have really been what helped them already reduce permitting by 30%. So I think that this is maybe a big announcement about a number of things they've been doing for a long time, but maybe branding them, bringing them in together. And what's really new is this refund process. And I think for council and taxpayers out there, the question is, you don't want to deprive the system of the funding to pay for the staff needed to do the work. So it's got to be really only in egregious situations. And I really appreciate that in spite of the headlines, that the details really say things like it's 180 days in the city's hands. It's a review process by an executive committee to say, could this be solved? And only if it can't be solved at that point do we start talking about refunds. And that seems like the right approach versus just saying, listen, you've had this project for too long in the applicant's hands, but I'm going to give you money back. That would have been the headline you could take away, but that wouldn't have been fair.
Well, the developers, the business owners, like I said, they seem to be psyched. I talked to Drew Hamrick of the Apartment Association of Metro Denver, the landlord's lobbyist at the State House. He said this sounds like a move in the right direction, and that this is probably going to mean lower prices because it'll mean faster building times. So I don't know. I mean, he's not the only one excited, but I want to move on to the other piece of this whole story about the mayor's relationship with the business community downtown and kind of get into some speculation here because I've got a theory about what's going on. But there was this other story from Business Den that was kind of a follow-up to this letter. Do you all remember this letter that these business owners led by
Scathing.
really, really harsh letter led by Dave Query of the Jack's Fish House and Oyster Bar. He sent it a couple months ago to the mayor, basically complaining about crime downtown, property taxes, bike infrastructure, overall bad vibes, like everything. He was just saying like, you suck. You're not doing good for downtown. But according to Business Den this week, Query says he's met twice with the neighbor's office, and he's delighted by it. He thinks that the mayor is listening. Quote, is writing a letter and copying 140 people on it the best way to go? Sometimes. Sometimes you got to make a lot of noise. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I think he's talking about like the new safety program the mayor announced a couple weeks ago, and then this permitting thing. Like he feels like they're being listened to. What do you all feel about the mayor and the business community? Like what's your sense of Mayor Johnston right now?
I mean, there's just a lot of PR happening here. Like there's a lot, and the mayor's really good at it. I will say that is like, he's really good at being out there and talking about whatever the issue is. And like, I'm in front of it, I'm dealing with it. And I feel like this was PR wise, a smart move, frankly, respond to those folks
to say
directly.
Yes?
Well, to even just respond to it, you know, in a way that the folks that wrote it felt they were being heard. I mean, that, I will just say, like, too, is like when you get a lot of hate mail all the time, and anybody that's in any sort of public facing job gets that, you rarely get somebody being like, oh, thank you for addressing the thing I brought to you. So I find that interesting for what it actually means in practice. I don't know. I don't know what the mayor's going to be able to promise these folks.
Robin, why do you think the mayor's so welcoming to the business community right now?
I mean, I think it's a real issue in terms of the downtown experience, right? Everybody, I think, residents, visitors and businesses were really affected by the stabbing. And so I think that we have these single incidents that may not be representative of a whole city, but they coalesce all these feelings and all this attention around them. And so the idea that, I go downtown all the time. I'm at the Auraria campus. I cross Spear and I go to the businesses and, in the lower downtown area, they're thriving and there's a lot of life. I feel very safe in downtown, but you've got to counter the nighttime perceptions as well.
Yeah. I also just have to say that when we pull out these individual instances that then become the whole lightning rod story, like the stabbing, like I just, it's not that that's common by any means, but we see violence like that all over the city. I'll say last weekend, someone in my family was walking down Broadway in broad daylight and was assaulted by a gentleman, punched in the face 3 times. And she was leaving her job on Broadway. And that story didn't get a bunch of attention, that a young woman was assaulted by, you know what I mean? Oh, all of a sudden, is South Broadway safe? Like, so it's not that the stabbing was not traumatic and terrible, but I find that it's very easy to glom onto one story and then tell a whole narrative about that neighborhood. Yes. And I don't like that because it's not also just like not giving precedence to other neighborhoods that are struggling with things too.
Yeah, it's this perception problem that we talk about, and it leads to real impact. Like, this is my theory, is I looked at the sales tax revenue for the last few years. I know this was a big problem last year because it plateaued basically across the city. And this is where a lot of the city's money comes from to fund the programs that they do, like, trash picking up and everything else. It was basically flat last year, and we're due to see new numbers at the end of the month. I checked with the Economic Development Office about what the status is. There's been a rumor going around that the numbers are down and that big changes could be coming. And that's kind of my theory on the mayor's this new turn towards business, like why he was so receptive to the Dave Query letter.
Well, you've talked about this a lot on the show, which is that for people to feel safe in any community, we got to get to the root causes, right? And so I think that, there's been discussion about activating downtown and residents and life on the streets, right? The reason I feel safe in lower downtown is there's people around, it's very active.
Jane Jacobs' theory of
and so
safe downtown.
I will say that the thing about these big announcements is they're very heavily focused on policing. And I will say the community policing approach, though, is a better one. I'd rather have police on horses, interacting. Kids are going to want to come up to them and they're just visible and be a preventative force than rolling in on a 911 call, not knowing the context of what's been happening. Maybe you have someone who's in distress, and rather than watching the whole thing from the beginning evolve and maybe having empathy, they're coming in with that fight or flight reaction. So I think this is a better way to do policing, is this community policing approach that they're talking about. And here's, one potential benefit for neighborhoods that, Bree, you're worried about being left behind is right now the Police District 6 serves Capitol Hill, it serves, Uptown, it serves, downtown. There is a lot happening on Colfax and other places. And for your safety services to always be figuring out who to serve, if you do have a small dedicated team really focused on downtown, then maybe we can have the same kinds of, attention to Colfax and other areas. That may be more equitable than right now, this idea that you just are emergency always sending your police to one community and the other communities feel left behind. So that's a community perspective I've heard a lot is, downtown is, we should just dedicate something downtown rather than competing. So, take it or leave it. But
interesting. Well, we got to move on, but Robin, you promised us a scoop. Tell us about this business.
Well, the permitting story. Everyone loves to hold court with their city council member when they're in the community. And one of the biggest sessions I ever held was at X Bar, a line of gay men sharing their concerns about parking and trash pickup and permitting. But, Queen Scoopers is coming to Colfax.
Wow.
It's not the king and it's not the super. It's the Queen Scoopers ice cream.
Oh. This is
and they have been in permitting since 2019 to get an ice cream shop on Colfax. And this is the thing about permitting. We really know how to do boxes really well. We know how to do cookie cutter. But when you want something epic, think about Little Man ice cream. Think about, the putting green in Green Valley Ranch's beer garden. There's not a manual for these things. So Queen Scoopers got real stuck about, is it signage? Is it public art? But they have finally made it through permitting. And, they're not opening quite yet because they've just now getting their permits to start construction.
After 5 years.
It's a tough story, folks. That's why I say it's real. This is John Gerard, the owner of Table 6 Restaurant. Sure. Good guy, took it over to make sure that he's got health care for those workers, not because he wanted to be in the restaurant business, but really wanted to keep them going and take care of a good team of workers. And
so this ice cream shop, where is it going to be? They're going to build it?
It's going to be on Colfax next to an iconic other queer community establishment.
Okay.
And but that's the kind of permitting story where I say we can't think about this as just a big business story.
That's
right?
fair.
Yeah.
No, that's fair because I
That's a
think
good
there is
point.
that thought. It's like, it's just these giant developers that are trying
it's
to
not the
push
Drew
through their...
Hamricks. It's anything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's anyone who wants to build anything.
Exactly. And so John has really, he's kept it going through all of this. And I personally can't wait. He spent most of the pandemic mixing up his ice cream recipes in his own kitchen. And so it's going to be really great. And I did my best in council to help problem solve, whether an ice cream cone was a sign or public art. Verdict, it's public art, people. It's public art. It's not subject to the sign code. This is the work of your public officials.
Apparently.
And maybe we need to overhaul the sign code. I'm just saying. Colfax has had some incredible signs that you could not have today.
Wow. Queen
Keeping
Scoopers.
Keeping it real.
You had me at the name.
I was thinking of something
name.
else, so that was helpful to know it was ice cream.
Queen Scoopers. Queen Scoopers.
Oh, Bree.
That's fun to say. Okay, coming soon. When? So it's good, not for a while.
Not for a minute,
Okay.
but this is the success when you can get a project through that, you can bring something beautiful that helps enhance the culture of our city, along with, employing a few folks, making some families happy, right? Yeah.
We wish them a lot of luck. And we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about Pride. All right, we're back. Denver's annual Pride celebration is 6 weeks away, but we already know things are going to feel a little different this year. We'll start with the big news this week. According to a report from Denverite, fundraising for the parade is, quote, plummeting, with the Center on Colfax apparently seeing a $230,000 shortfall in corporate sponsorship compared to this time last year. kind of a huge story. I realized this week this is a national story. I guess all these companies that are shutting down their DEI programs are also not sponsoring Pride. Robin, what do you think about this?
I'm a get the facts gal, and I gotta say, I wonder a little bit if we can blame it all on DEI. The staff for the center was really careful in their media appearances, and I really appreciated that. There's a lot of uncertainty in the business world right now, and people don't know if tariffs are going to take away the products that they need to make what they do. They don't know if the employees they rely on as customers from the federal government who are all losing their jobs are going to be buying less of their stuff. There could be a lot of reasons businesses are pulling back on sponsorships, non-essential giving right now, other than capitulation. So I want more facts.
Yeah, the other fact for the center is they had a longtime CEO, Rex Fuller, who was known as a fundraising whiz, who stepped back between last Pride and this Pride. They have a new interim CEO who probably doesn't have the same relationships. That's really important in this world.
It's important in every job that you have is the relationships. And when you leave that job, you might take all those with you. I mean, I don't think that's the only reason, but I do imagine if they had been working with Rex for 20 years and they were like, oh, we've got all these other things we're dealing with that might just be the final nail. I mean, this is complicated to me for the queer community because corporations are not our friends. Corporations are not invested in our liberation. This has been a long-running argument of should we even have corporations involved in Pride, which is an act of resistance, is rooted in acts of resistance. Has it become more accessible? Yes. Has it become more about more people being involved and more family? And, it's evolved from what it originated as, but I think some folks will still say, but at the root of it, this is what it's about. And I can see where some folks were like, good. Bye, peace out, whoever it might be, Coors.
I did see a lot of that response of screw you guys.
Which has been a long-running undertone conversation for Prides since they began. So it's very complicated to me. I think the other thing I was wondering when you're talking about facts is when were they made aware of this information? Because they're planning Pride all year. Did they just find out in April? All your permits are already pulled. All your vendors are already set. All your trash, your bathrooms, your security, your barricades. I imagine all that's ready to go by April. You're ready to be in June. So when
because you got the costs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The costs are in place.
The costs are in place, and a lot of these agreements are in place. Vendors you need to pay. So when did they find out they weren't going to get this 60+% of their funding?
Well, Coors is the big name here. Coors has been the longtime sponsor of Denver Pride. We don't know who's pulled back, by the way. And the center, their interim CEO, they did say specifically it's due to rollbacks in DEI budgets. But Coors is the big one. I checked the Pride Parade website, and the Coors Light name is still on there. It doesn't seem like there's any change there. Maybe they reduced their commitment. But last September, Coors was one of these companies that rolled back their DEI programs. And specifically, CNBC reported Molson Coors will also ensure all corporate charitable giving programs are focused on, quote, core business goals, such as alcohol responsibility, disaster relief efforts, and promoting access to higher education. That doesn't sound like Pride to me.
So I got to say that, Bree's right. I brought with me Phil Nash's book, LGBTQ Denver, and it talks about the queer in Cheeseman Park, really the origins of Pride. But that was a time of a small community that was really under isolation, invisibility, and when visible, attack. And we are in such a different place now. And I think that part of what I love about the queer community, I went to the queerest law school in the nation. You may not know such a thing exists, but Northeastern University Law School. And our motto was, we have so many gay people, we don't even have to all like each other. The idea is that when your community has come into the light and is big and vibrant, it's okay to have a bunch of different ways of doing it. And I got to say that there is a movement piece that's, we've got radical queer organizations that are out there on, front lines of, the parasols. And then you've got, One Colorado that's doing the political fight. And the center has really become a place of service to individuals and a place to hold the collective history of the community. And it's okay with me that they are raising money to do those things, right? We could give the alternative, which is being really reliant on government funding. And then when those sales tax figures that you talked about, Paul, dive, then they lose their funding from that source. So you got to find your funding however you can to do important work. And I think, but I got to take issue with Molson Coors. This was never a DEI investment. This was a business decision they made.
It's PR to me.
It was about
PR
getting
opportunity.
queer community and allies to buy their beer.
Yeah.
It was totally self-interested.
An untapped market for them,
So I think and I think that's what, one of the concerns people legitimately have is that the queer community and our allies have become just this big market, and that's what this investment was always about. It was never about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was about expanding, ticket sales to, queer customers and their allies. It was about getting their
talk about
dollars.
a lot of double income, no kids, folks. You're going to find quite a few of those in the queer community. That's disposable income.
Although
baby.
everyone's having babies now, and it's
Which,
killing the gay bar business. If you ask Andy Feinstein, he'll say it was Netflix and gay adoption that really changed the game.
Which I love. But also, again, then you have a whole new market of more.
Exactly.
You know what? No one's a bigger sucker than a parent. I'll tell you that. I was sold everything under the sun on Instagram when I first had my kid. So,
oh man, do you remember the Phyllis Schlafly? I mean, my kid loves Pride. I mean, so many kids, they love getting the water. We don't do water guns anymore because that can be traumatizing. But you water balloons and beads and all of that. But there was that 1980s Phyllis Schlafly video of the kid crying at a Pride parade and the parents, having dragged them there. And I just think if you walk, the best thing, I'm wearing my Pride t-shirt today for viewers of video. You got to check it out. It's my unicorn t-shirt. But there's nothing like wearing your unicorn outfit, walking down Colfax and just seeing the joy on kids' faces for just being themselves and seeing others being themselves. And so it's the family stuff that makes it great. And I feel like we need corporate sponsors to pay for the permits and all of that. But that piece of it is okay with me, that it's joy and not just resistance.
You brought up Phyllis Schlafly, and I'm thinking, and then you start talking about kids, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've totally shown my kid a video of Phyllis Schlafly getting pied in the face on TV. And then you're like, no, that's not actually the other Phyllis Schlafly.
Oh, but that's the much better one.
It's so good. But I agree with you. I think this has been a long running thing before I was a parent, being able to be a part of something and bringing someone to. I was bringing my best friend to Pride before he was out. Because I knew, and I was like, let's just go check it out. The music's good. You might see some, and then years later, he's like, how did you know I was gay? I was like, I knew you were gay the day I met you when we were 16, but you weren't ready to tell us that till you were 26, and that's okay. But we got to do we went to a lot of tracks used to have a 16 and up night when I was in high school. We went there a lot. So there was a lot of being able to test the waters, because a kid from Commerce City is not necessarily going to know this is okay, Also, just side note, you would love this. When he came out, his mom goes, is this because I dressed you like Dolly Parton for Halloween in kindergarten? And he was like, no, Mom, that's not the reason.
The questions mothers ask. That should be a coffee table book. What did your mother ask when you came out?
But yeah, it's complicated.
And people feel differently about it. As I talked to a lot of people this week. I talked to a state representative, member of this community, who was like, I feel like all the sponsorship was validating, and it feels nice that there's this support for the community. And then on the other end, I talked to one of the protesters who interrupted the parade last year. Many people will remember there was these Palestine solidarity protesters interrupted the parade, had a statement to make. And what they were exactly protesting was corporate sponsors of Pride, specifically those that are on the boycott, divestment, and sanctions list. So I wanted to share a little bit of that conversation I had with this person, Saoirse Maloney. Saoirse told me she wishes the center had been more proactive. Instead of letting these sponsors drop Pride, that the center had proactively said, no, we don't want it. We don't want any sponsorships from companies that are rolling back their DEI programs. And she told me that apparently this is happening in the Twin Cities. Their Pride has said no to Target, which is a huge sponsor there, and the same in Cincinnati, sort of like saying, I mean, if you don't want us, no thanks. We don't want your money.
I think one of the questions for our community now, and I don't mean the queer community, but I mean the Denver community, is what can we do to step in? Because one of the things that we need to support thriving community institutions is a culture of philanthropy, a culture of giving. We have, even our foundations are withdrawing funding from certain causes right now, not so much as capitulation, but because they want to conserve. So if I used to fund this thing at a certain level, and now that thing is no longer going to get any federal funding, I might need to double my funding to it, which means I can't do this thing on the other side. So the question really is, how do we self-sustain really important community institutions? I don't think we have a great model for that in Denver. I once had a foundation leader. I said, you got to understand, we're so poor in Colorado. We've got Tabor, she looked at me and she said, your state has wealth. You are not, you don't have a culture of giving that is, basically, whether it's investing in childcare at your state level as a public sector or private sector, we don't give enough to support our institutions. So we can't blame the center for going to corporate sponsors unless we have a plan to get their back. And I think that's what we need to do right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the other idea. In the Twin Cities, when their Pride said no to Target, they started a crowdfunding campaign. Fox 9 reported in the Twin Cities, they raised $89,000 to fill a $50,000 gap just from community members donating.
Absolutely.
If I was the center, I would be thinking about that right now.
Yeah, I think about my friend Jamie Duffy, who's the executive director. You're good friends with her too. For Youth on Record, at their gala events, she always says philanthropy at any level. Anybody can give, and it sounds like so. I don't know, I think about even if you look at a GoFundMe campaign, you'll see somebody donate $5 and say, I wish I could give more, but that's all I have. But if 25 people are giving $5, so it's like giving folks the opportunity to pay to the community the thing that they want to see. And I mean, that takes a lot of work in itself too. Fundraising is not an easy thing, but maybe that's something that the center could consider.
I think you're right. I think people would love it. The opportunity to support this. I mean, this corporate sponsorship of Pride thing has been so controversial for so long. I think people would really love to feel like a personal stake in it, to shape it in the way they want.
And we can't let it go unsaid. I just want all of our listeners to know that Pride fundraises for the programs that the center delivers. Sable Schultz has been a transgender leader and has done so much work for the transgender community. There is, an elders group at the center. They're so amazing. You think about aging in a community. There aren't a lot of LGBTQ inclusive places to age, and the center is going to be a partner in a new affordable housing building for, elders who don't maybe some of them are childless and they don't have someone to take care of them.
Or even have just lost so much of their own community, because we're talking about the generation most impacted by the AIDS crisis.
Absolutely.
Where we lost so many queer folk. It's unfathomable how many queer folks we lost. So even their fellow community members are no longer here too. So they really need the rest of us to step up and create that space for them to be. And also, they're valuable members of our community and they know so much.
So this isn't just about paying for the costs of the parade and the festival. It's actually about paying for the services that really important.
The rest of the year.
That's what it does. And so I think, it's going to be a tough moment, right? We have pullbacks at government. We have pullbacks locally with sales tax and the uncertainty in the economy causing people to pull back on spending and giving. And it may be a skinnier year even for Pride, but I believe in the resilience of this event and this community, and I think we can rise up.
Well, it'll be interesting, whatever happens. I mean, will there be protests? Not sure. Saoirse Maloney said, waiting and seeing what happens in the next 6 weeks. We know it's not going to be on Colfax, it's going to be on 17th Avenue, but I don't know. I mean, we'd love to hear what you think, I think. That's what I want to know. Is how are people feeling about Pride this year, given the political climate, given the construction?
I mean, the political climate too, I couldn't think of a moment more than ever than we need public spaces for communities to come together and feel what we need from each other, because we're not getting it other, because we're seeing so much destruction elsewhere.
All right. Well, the number to call is 720-500-5418. Again, that's 720-500-5418. We're going to go to one more break, and we're going to come back with our wins and fails of the week. And we're back. Best way to end the week. My favorite segment. My favorite thing we do is Tuesdays when we respond to listener comments and questions. So send those in for Tuesday. I guess my second favorite thing, wins and fails, aka Rocky Mountain highs and lows. Each of us brought a recent local something we think is a win and another we think is a fail, and we're going to talk about them. Fails first. Bree.
So there's this program called the Imagination Denver Library Program, and what it is it's with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. They partner with organizations across every state, and they provide one free book you can sign up, and your kid can get a free book in the mail every month, based on their age too. I think it's 18 months to 5 years. We signed up for this program. My son is almost 4. It's been awesome. Robin, you'll know this. There's a lot of crappy children's books out there, just badly written. And so this is like a curated selection of great books with different stories and different perspectives and different lessons. And it's been such a joy. And they are pausing this program in May because their local partners are not putting the funding that the Dolly Parton Library needs to make it run.
Same story, it sounds like.
Damn. Well, they're facing also a huge increasement in enrollment. More folks are doing this. And it also just said, Denver 7 reported this, a shift in priorities of local donors away from early childhood literacy. So it's not a priority.
Interesting. I wonder what
right as we're watching the reading scores lag still post-pandemic. We've still not recovered our reading scores since before the pandemic.
And this is because not only do they send you a book, like my son's really lucky. He goes to the library every week with his grandma. We read every night 4 to 5 books. Not every kid has that opportunity, but also, so in the book, they also give you a list of questions that parents can ask their kids after you've read it to help continue the conversation about it. It's such a cool program. And I actually found out about it because I got a notification email that was like, it's pausing. And I Googled it and I was like, what? And then I'm like, oh, of course, because we're losing funding for childhood literacy programs. Wow. So that's my big fail.
You did get 2 Dolly Parton mentions, though, in one episode. For those of you with your bingo cards,
if this is not a Pride episode, I don't know what it is.
We're going to have to top that in June somehow.
I think we could do it.
All right, I guess I'll go. So my fail is, it starts with a win. I went last Friday to the annual Denver Reddit Mod Meetup. The Reddit company invited all their moderators, I'm a moderator of a subreddit, to attend a meetup to get to know each other. Apparently last year the CEO of the company was here, didn't come. I was hoping Jared Polis might be there. I know he's a mod. He was not there. But I met a bunch of people, including the moderators of the Denver Protests subreddit, which has emerged as a place where a lot of people are finding out about protests. And then also the moderators of the R Denver subreddit, which is the big one. Like 150,000 people in Denver are talking about city issues, sometimes the stuff that we're talking about. And I learned that there has been a conflict between those two subreddits recently, and the moderators specifically, because the R Denver people don't always like to promote the protest subreddit stuff. It's, political disagreements, as you can imagine, happens. But the fail comes with, as a part of that conflict, apparently these moderators have been facing death threats.
Not okay.
The R Denver moderators the talk of the meetup was these moderators are facing death threats. And, regardless of what you think about this website, these people are giving their time to try to provide a space and curate a space.
People shouldn't be getting death threats.
No matter what. That's not cool. But yeah, I just think I appreciate the service that they provide to the city. I think it's valuable. And the death threats is that's such a, fail doesn't capture the half of it.
This is why, when you think about public servants, the anonymity of the keyboard, right? And probably people were sending in, typed letters back in the day, but maybe less so when the mail could be traced and phone calls can be traced. But you've got the anonymity of these, most people use pseudonyms on Reddit. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that it's consequenceless to say things like this, even if it's,
I went to the police about this and they can't do anything. So I feel for them. I really do. Yeah. I've been through this myself, and it's it's hard because then it makes you feel unsafe outside in the world. Because even though it's just, and it makes it hard to explain sometimes to other folks, like, oh, that's just online. But in reality, you're watching your back. You don't know what's going on. I had someone email me and tell me that they described what I looked like. They saw me at a concert. They described the positions of my tattoos. I had somebody create a fake profile of me on Twitter. I had somebody solicit violent acts against me on Craigslist using my photographs. So I totally understand the feeling of like that anonymity and then no repercussions for that, whoever they are, and then walking around carrying that and people not knowing what you're experiencing. So my heart goes out to them. That's awful. And nobody deserves that.
Yeah.
Robin, how about you? What's your fail?
Well, the anti-pride fail of the week was Hannah Goodman, the head of the Libertarian Party.
God. This
What
was
And we have to just
is it,
put a
ma'am?
little context here. The Libertarian Party was founded on the premise of keeping government out of the business of interfering with individual liberty.
Yeah.
What could be more of a liberty issue than being able to be who you are and love who you want to love? But Hannah Goodman can ruin even a good thing. And she sent a bunch of anti-gay slurs to someone who had some saucy things to say about their Facebook posts. The anonymous, in this case, to protect himself, complainant here admits that his critique of their Facebook page was pretty sassy. But then it devolved
it's
into
politics on Facebook. You're allowed.
Yeah, and he got a bunch of private messages back with anti-gay slurs and no apology from her or the party. They've basically acknowledged that it was on the party's official account that this occurred.
Yeah.
It's like the burning of gay flags last year from the Republican Party. It's clear we have
God hates flags too.
Yeah,
the Westboro Baptist Church references.
yeah. So I just will say that another all-time low for a political party in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, the slurs themselves suck, and then the hypocrisy of the ideology too. Like, I think that's a good point. You can live up your values, libertarians. I don't know. I hated this. I hated this story, and the way they stuck by it too, and stood by the slurs like after it came out, and not just Hannah Goodman, but the other party representative who was just like,
have
fine by
fun watching
me.
your small party get smaller. Like, what is
Yeah.
the end result of this for you? Also, is she not thinking like, of course someone's going to screenshot everything that's happening online, you ding dong?
Well,
I guess they didn't care if they doubled down.
it's, Ian Silveri, political commentator's favorite, is the dumpster fire of the Republican Party. And we really know that the Libertarian Party jumped into the dumpster fire with them last year. They made a pact to actually, engage in dumpster fire coalitions for elections, that the, Libertarians wouldn't endorse anybody against a Republican in a swing seat where they shared their values. And here we have Gabe Evans, perhaps. But now we know the dumpster fire is open for more parties.
I feel like just the party system in general. I wonder if Kent Theory had run his ranked choice voting thing and the getting rid of primaries thing this year, if it would have been a different story. Because I feel like all the parties are unpopular
election.
right now. The Democrats are polling way worse than November. The Libertarians are using gay slurs.
But I also think there's folks searching for party alignment, and they're just not finding it. I met with the group of women last night who were like, we're just trying to figure out who can we go to do the things that we need to get done in our communities, and no party's doing that right now.
Well, we'll have a whole other episode, and you'll have me back to talk about why you need infrastructure, right? Why self-organized political movements often fail to gain and sustain governing power without some institutions to do it. So.
Interesting topic. Maybe we will have that conversation. Let's move on to wins. Wins of the week. Robin, you requested to go last. Bree, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Mine is just a recommendation for this incredible movie I saw this week. It's called Secret Mall Apartment, and it's a documentary. Adrian Gonzalez, our newsletter editor, was like, oh my God, I heard a 99% Invisible episode about this. This is your movie. This movie is for you. And Keith Garcia at the Film Center was like, oh, I can't think of a movie you wouldn't love more. But it's the story of some artists in Providence, Rhode Island, who were evicted from their warehouse that was torn down to build some strip malls. And in sort of reaction to it, there was a mall built not far from where this industrial area was. And then after the mall was built, all of this, it's the gentrification sort of cycle. And so these artists were all kicked out, and they started one of them had watched them build the mall, and he remembered that there was a spot that he couldn't figure out what was going to be there. And he went into the mall to find it. And sure enough, he found this like 4 foot by 4 foot space. It was just an empty space back in the annals of the mall. And he turned it into this living performance art piece for 4 years, where a bunch of artists moved a bunch of stuff in there and hung out inside this secret space in the mall. But it's beyond that.
They're just living in the mall?
Not really. They kind of hung out there. They had their own places. They lived elsewhere because it doesn't have plumbing. But they did pull electricity from somewhere, so they watched TV. But
Where is this mall?
Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh, Providence,
so
right.
Rhode Island also, the DIY space that they were living in was called Fort Thunder, and it's sort of just like this very well known in the DIY community space. It's the same era that gave us Meow Wolf, essentially. And so all the Fort Thunder folks were like, where do we go next? And this was their next place, was like invading the thing that they believed kind of pushed them out. But it's more of a cool story about a group of artists doing something while also they show us the other art pieces that they do throughout cities for good. And like it'll make you think about what places art happens and what other places art can happen when you don't realize it. And it was just such a great movie. So it's playing at the Sie FilmCenter all weekend through next week. It's called Secret Mall Apartment. Highly recommend it. It's just like a nice...
That is a very Bree movie.
It's a very me movie, but it also just like, it just felt good to watch these folks do something in secret.
I wonder if anything like that's happening here. If anyone's living in a mall or doing a secret art
Well,
project
I started
or something.
thinking about it, and
I'd love to know.
I worked in the Cherry Creek Mall for 17 years. I know all kinds of spots. Like, I see how they did this. I get it.
We've heard about that underground
We know where to go
nightclub.
looking for you, Bree.
Yeah. I'm to be living behind the Macy's inside where the place I used to work when it was Foley's. So...
All right, I'll go next. My win this week. Last week we talked about the Nuggets, how they're kind of got some weird vibes going into the playoffs. I want to talk about the Avalanche this week because the vibes are immaculate. Very good feelings going into the playoffs on Saturday night. They're playing the Stars in the first round series. But the story is the captain, Gabe Landeskog. The last time he played for this team was 3 years ago. The last time he played an NHL game was the game they won the Stanley Cup. And he got a knee injury. He had to get surgery, and it's been a horrible, long recovery. I personally thought he would never play again. These kinds of knee injuries, that long of time off, I thought it was over. But last week, not only is his return, is it happening? Is he healthy? But he did something I've never seen before from an NHL player. He accepted an assignment to go play for the minor league affiliate in Loveland, the Colorado Eagles. He played 2 games as a conditioning stint. This is like a Stanley Cup winner, the captain of the team, that goes to play with these like 18, 19-year-old kids, prospects, and is, he's just demonstrating his leadership is what he's doing. And a bunch of the Avs went in to watch this team, and he scored a goal on Saturday night. He's looking great. I don't know if he's going to be an impact player, but the fact that he would do this, like to show the humility to play with the minor league guys, and now he's going to be joining the team, and they're getting ready for this first series, and the team looks great. Like I thought that was a great sports story, and I can't wait to watch him in the playoffs.
This has been big talk in my house. My 16-year-old is so excited about Landeskog.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
It's a great story. It's like, you don't see this from these guys. In hockey, they don't have the same big egos they do in other sports. They're all like, don't want to talk about themselves ever. And they're all quite boring, so maybe they shouldn't. But I loved this from Landeskog.
Oh, they weren't boring at that parade. Did you see their behavior? We, had a bird's eye view from they were a bunch of teenagers having a party. It was really fun.
Imagine that many people just coming out in the street to cheer for you. I'd be stoked too.
Yeah, totally. They earned it. And they all, managed to carry around that trophy without dropping it. There's the guy who follows him, and he has the gloves.
Phil
and you
Pritchard.
you kind of watch him like he's like nervous, but
It's a hard job.
I think people need a little inspiration in this moment of a lot of darkness. And the ACLU just won a 2-week stay on deportations for Coloradans who are being detained under the auspices that they're part of, the Trendo Ragwa gang. And we know that this administration is deporting people with no hearings, no court orders,
No due process.
no evidence that they really are gang members. And so the ACLU won a 2-week pause for anybody in Colorado that's a Venezuelan at risk of being deported. And, this is really important for folks to know that attempt to deport people goes, including to youth as young as 14 years old.
I learned that this morning.
These are kids.
These are
kids they're threatening to deport with no due process, no evidence at all. So it's a 2-week pause. We'll see what happens next. But to see that there are groups fighting back and winning, at least
and there's
for
a
now.
lot of conversation about this being the tipping point for constitutionality and if we have anything left to fight. There's a really great episode I listened to this morning of the 5-4 podcast explaining this through another case. But if you want to understand why this is so it's just unfathomable, and the what is it, the Alien Act that they've been using that's from 17,
Alien Enemies Act.
that's only been invoked during times of war, like the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. And so
Three times.
Even the Supreme Court was saying this is not wartime. So it's terrifying, but that's nice to know that there's maybe some inching forward in keeping folks safe and keeping folks here.
Yeah.
Well, some great wins this week, and we'll put all those links in the show notes. I could not find the art rendering, but I will
I saw
find
it on
it.
Instagram. I can
We'll
share
find it. We'll put the link in the show notes along with everything else, and we'd love to know what you think. I gave the phone number earlier. I'll give it again. It's 720-500-5418. Call anytime. Tell us what you think about everything we talked about or whatever you want. We want to know what's on your mind. Here we are at the end of the show. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Olivia Jewel Love and me, Paul Caroli. Adam Sage edits the video for YouTube. McKenna Harford writes our morning newsletter, Hey Denver. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. We also had music this week by Abbas, Premji, and Wendy Marcini. If you haven't already, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at CityCastDenver and tell Coors. Tell the Coors family about us. Tell them to respond to my email,
the
please.
Imagination Library that wants to do that.
That's
Dolly, call Dolly.
Hope someone wants
Dolly.
to hook up with Dolly's Imagination Library and make this thing happen for June for our kids.
And you can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. Robin, Bree, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks guys.